Well, howdy, welcome to One for the Books. I'm Sandy Broadwell, and today we're going to talk about how to start and run a successful book club. Now, this is not something I consider myself a total expert on. I have only been a part of one book club in the past, and I do consider that to have been a successful book club. We probably stayed together for about 2 years and read a lot of really good books together, and just ended up breaking apart because several people moved away. But I am starting a new book club, the first time I'm starting it myself. And so I've done a lot of research in the last month or so on how to start a successful book club, and I just wanted to share what I've learned with all of you. So without further ado, let's dive into the tips. First of all, if you don't want to start a book club and you just want to join a book club, I would recommend looking at social media, specifically like Facebook groups related to reading or Facebook groups in your area. I would definitely check the Meetup app. That's a really good place to look. And also check the website for your local bookstores and libraries, because they often already have book clubs that are open to the public that anyone can join. So check there first. But the rest of this video is about starting your own book club. And of course, these are all suggestions. Book clubs, I think, should be flexible and grow with the group over time. You don't have to have a huge set of rules right at the get-go, and it's totally fine if you don't. But these are just some guidelines, like I said, that I've heard around the internet that I think will be helpful for you to at least think about if you're thinking about starting a book club. And if that's what you're trying to do, I feel like there's two different kind of approaches. One is maybe you don't know anyone that you want to be in your book club. You maybe are new to the area, or you just don't know anyone that likes to read the same style of books that you do, and so you're kind of starting from scratch. If that's the case, a lot of the suggestions I just recommended on where to look are also where to start. You can create a group on Meetup, you can do a post in a Facebook group, you can put flyers at your local bookstore or library or even your favorite coffee shop. Those would be my recommendations on where to start totally from scratch. On the other hand, if you already know exactly who you want to be in your book club, that's where I'm starting from, and that's a lot easier and a lot less stressful. I'm starting a book club with my family, and so for us, it was easy peasy. But even if you only have maybe one or two people that you are thinking about inviting into your book club and you want it to be a little bigger than that, you can always ask them to bring a friend and, maybe make some new friends that way. Next, limiting your membership to a small number of people. I saw a lot of different takes on what a small number of people means. I think for me, starting out with a book club, I think 6 people or less would probably be good. That way, it's not so long before you get to choose the book again that everyone's reading for book club, and when we get together to have discussions, it's not going to take 6 hours to get through everyone's comments, and there's going to be plenty of time for people to be heard and really to get into the meat of it. 2 really important things to get out of the way from the get-go are structuring your book club and setting expectations for who you invite into it. And specifically, I mean, like, what is the structure of the book club? Is it going to be very formal? Are you going to have a list of discussion questions and you're going to stay on topic and you're going to do a deep dive on the literary merit of a book and the themes and that sort of thing? Or are you just wanting to get together to have a casual book chat, and if things get off topic, then that's totally fine. I think if people come into these situations with different expectations of what's actually going to happen during the book club discussion, that can definitely turn some people off if they were expecting a really literary discussion and it turned into a wine chat after the first 10 minutes. The next part of setting expectations is choosing what your book club is going to focus on. What is the genre that you guys are going to read? Having a totally open-ended book club might sound fun, but from what I've gathered on the internet, it usually doesn't go that well because people are constantly choosing books that don't appeal to anyone else. So for me specifically, if I was to start a book club out in the wild and invite a bunch of strangers, I would make it very clear on the flyer or in the post or whatever that I was starting a fantasy and sci-fi book club, because those are the 2 genres that appeal the most to me. And I think I will have a lot better success reading fantasy sci-fi books with other people who like to read fantasy and sci-fi. Everyone in the book club should make an effort to read the whole book. This is really important. If you just want to have a social get-together with your friends, that's very different from having a book club, and everyone needs to make sure that they know what your expectations are for that. It's okay to have social time mixed in with your book club time, but it's not going to be a successful book club if everyone shows up not having read the book. So just make sure that everyone knows it is expected that they at least attempt to read the book. And people who don't finish the book can't complain about spoilers. Of course, if someone repeatedly does not read the book and continues to show up at the book club consistently without having read the book, then you can flog them in the streets. Just kidding, please don't. But you do need to think about, as a book club, how you would handle that if someone is dead weight. Maintain a reasonable and regular schedule. Scheduling can sometimes be the hardest part of getting together with people, so just, set that out from the get-go, whether you're doing once every 2 weeks or once every 2 months, whatever seems reasonable for everyone in the group. And just stick to that schedule. If it's, the third Wednesday of the month or whatever, everyone has it on their calendar for the rest of the year and no one forgets what day it's on. Another tip is be equitable in how books are chosen. Generally, having a book czar or a leader that chooses the book every time isn't going to go over well. That sort of stuff works really well if it's like a celebrity book club or like a bookish influencer whose book club you're joining. But generally amongst friends or amongst peers or family or coworkers, people are going to feel left out if they don't get to ever choose the book. It'll feel a lot more fair if you have like a rotating, everyone gets to choose a book, on a rotating basis, or some other way of choosing the books that makes it feel like everyone had input. Another tip I read a lot was choose a book that can sustain a discussion. And to me, this feels a little bit amorphous, like, how are you going to know if a book can sustain a discussion or not unless you've already read the book? Just do a little bit of due diligence, I suppose, and try to figure out what makes for a good discussion and choose books that fall into that. There's also tons of lists on the internet of good book club books. You don't have to choose one of those, of course, but you might have to get through a couple of flops before you find a good book club book. When it comes to book discussion time, don't trash talk a book that someone else chose. It's totally fine and should be welcomed to lay in some serious critique about a book, but just hating on a book is not a good way to have a conversation, and you need to make sure that you're being respectful of the books that other people chose and be respectful of other people's opinions even if you don't agree with them. A book club is not a consensus finder, right? It's a way to talk about a book from different perspectives and different opinions. So you need to be prepared to face off with some opinions that you don't agree with and be able to have a respectful discussion anyway. I also highly recommend taking notes. If you end up reading the book way before the deadline, there's maybe you'll forget half the things about the book that you thought were interesting by the time book club rolls around. Or even if you binge the book the day before, it might not all stick in your brain the same way. So taking notes or annotating the book, highlighting, underlining, or if you're not the type of person who likes to write in books, keeping separate notes, I think will really help facilitate a good book club discussion for everyone, regardless of whether you're the facilitator or just someone who's attending the book club. If you're attending book club, you're not the person who chose the book and you're uncertain what to talk about, plan to underline or highlight at least one quote or section or paragraph of the book that made you feel a certain kind of way. Maybe it made you uncomfortable or made you mad or made you sad or made you laugh out loud. Any of those things to be shared with others is going to start a good discussion. Try to think about the why behind your opinions, not just I didn't like this or I thought this could have been done better, but why do you think that? I think that is really what's going to flesh out the book club discussion away from likes and dislikes and really getting into the nitty-gritty interesting parts. During discussion, plan to add to your friends' comments or ideas, or ask a question about their comments and ideas before bringing up a separate idea. That way, everyone feels like they're being heard, the discussion flows well, and no one's thoughts are getting trampled on. If you were the person who chose the book, you absolutely need to read the entire book, even if you turn out to hate it. Hating a book can actually provide some really good discussion, and you are the facilitator of the book club if you are the one who chose the book. So you need to be prepared to facilitate discussion, even if the discussion starts with, I hated this book. If you are the person who chose the book for the next session of book club, then I think the onus is on you to be the facilitator and do a little bit more research than just showing up to book club having read someone else's book. So in this case, I think doing a little bit more background digging into who the author was, what their history was about, maybe reading an author interview so that you can bring that side of the discussion into it, or just brainstorm topics and discussion questions related to the book that would be interesting to discuss with your book club members. There's a ton of suggestions for this kind of stuff online, so you don't have to totally start from scratch. And then finally, of course, you need to decide whether your book club is going to meet virtually or in person. I personally think in person would be way more fun. My book club is going to meet virtually for the most part because some of my family members that I'm going to do it with live about 4 hours away, so it's just not feasible for us to get together all the time. But if you are having an in-person book club, there's a few more etiquette things to talk about here. If you're meeting in person, you should rotate the responsibility to host, just like it's equitable to let everyone choose a book at some point. It's equitable to not put the burden of hosting on the same person every time. However, if there is just one person who's better set up to host or really wants to host every time and everyone else is okay with that, then everyone else should contribute to the host burden a little bit by helping provide the snacks or getting there early to help set up or anything like that that would not make hosting such an inequitable task. If your book club is not meeting at someone's home but is meeting elsewhere out in the community, like at a coffee shop or a brewery or something like that, then rotate who gets to choose the venue, unless everyone is agreed that one spot in particular is your favorite spot. And finally, book club snacks and drinks do not need to be a huge production, but it would be nice if there were snacks and drinks anytime that people gather, whether it's like wine and a charcuterie board or lemonade and a bowl of M&Ms. Like, it doesn't need to be crazy, but there should at least be something to quench people's thirst and munch on a little bit since they're taking time out of their day. I personally think that doing like book themed snacks and drinks would be really fun, but since meeting in person isn't going to be a big component of our book club, I don't know that that will actually ever happen. So throwing the idea out there into the internet to hopefully inspire others to do book-themed snacks and drinks. Okay, so that's it. Those are a conglomeration of all the tips and tricks I read on the internet of how to start and maintain a successful book club. If you are planning to start a book club, I would love to know what your process is and how it's going. If you're in the middle of a book club, I'd love to know your best tips and tricks so that I can incorporate it into mine. And if you've been a part of a book club in the past, please comment down below and let me know which book that you've read as part of a book club led to the best discussions. So thanks so much for hanging out and tuning in for a little bit today. As always, please be kind, read more books, and hit the subscribe button down below for more bookish content to come. I'll see you again soon.